Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2 is currently airing with breathtaking animation, but MAPPA strikes again and yet another controversy. But this time things are pretty serious. A bunch of animators came out on Twitter regarding the horrible work schedule at MAPPA and how they are expected to reach impossible deadlines. I am sure most of you guys already know about this, as all the YouTube videos regarding this topic are based on either reading out tweets of these animators or just going through the entire situation. But till now, I have not seen anyone talk about what actually went wrong. What is the real reason behind these production issues? And in this video, I'll be talking about just that. The Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2's production issues started way before it even started airing. Yes, we have to go back to 2021 with JJK 0. That film to the general audience like me and you felt awesome. Everything about its animation was great, from the art style to Sakuga. But what if I tell you its production time was just 6 to 7 months? That also means even less time for the planning or the pre-production process. And that is where the entire problem lies. See, the planning phase is super important as it is kind of like a groundwork for the entire project, where the script is developed, the characters are designed, the visual style is determined, and more. The goal is to establish a clear vision for the actual anime production. And if you rush through this phase, then you're almost doomed to collapse in the future. So in Jujutsu Kaisen's case, MAPPA has a few animation producers who work with their individual teams on different projects. On paper, this seems similar to how Bone Studio works. They have specified sub-studios for each anime they work on. For example, Studio B works on My Hero Academia and Studio C worked on Mob Psycho. But it's just not as clearly segmented as they don't really have specified sub-studios, just different teams. The closest they have to a sub-studio is Chainsaw Man's team, which had a brand new studio under MAPPA for them. But Chainsaw Man's team, unlike the other teams, wasn't specifically made just to work on Chainsaw Man. One of MAPPA's producers is Keisuke Seshimo, and his team was in charge of JJK1 and the JJK movie. The same team was later put in charge of Chainsaw Man. So yes, the same team was put into a new studio. And here's where we make a timeline. So this team worked on Jujutsu Kaisen Season 1 since fall 2019, which is an assumption by the way, as Season 1 was first announced at this time, and ended in April 2021. Later this year, they moved on to work on Jujutsu Kaisen 0 in just 6 to 7 months, as it released in December 2021. After this, Chainsaw Man released in October 2022, which gives it around 10 months of production time. Which sounds interesting, right? As MAPPA fully produced Chainsaw Man. They didn't take help from any production committees like Toho, who help studios with funding, and usually they are the ones who decide stuff like pacing of the episodes and when the season will release. But this time MAPPA was in full control. Still, they could only give 10 months to a heavy production like Chainsaw Man. Well, the reason for this is that they have control over Chainsaw Man, but Toho controls Jujutsu Kaisen, so they had to put in a good slot between the movie and Season 2, which is where Chainsaw Man was released. And because of this, the production of Chainsaw Man completely collapsed at the end. So the same team working their asses off since 2019 were going into JJK Season 2 set to be released in July 2023, which gives it just 7 months of production. Yes, 7 months for a 23 episode anime. And this is where our little timeline ends, but the entire situation is still unfinished. You see, it's not like they could just pick up JJK from where they left off in the movie. There were many changes made in the staff, and Gosso, the director of the second season, had the vision to completely revamp the show's visual identity. This would require a beefy planning phase, and I assume some of it was done during Chainsaw Man, but obviously it needed more time. Because the staff was non-stop on work since JJK Season 1, the time they got to plan about the second season was simply not enough. But the biggest problem is that anyone who didn't know about the situation would never think that this was the case, because almost everything looks extremely polished, especially the hidden inventory arc, which in my opinion is one of the best shonen adaptations ever. But those were only the very first episodes, which had more time to be made. As more and more episodes were released, they had less time to produce and more cracks started showing. And it reached the point of staff taking this horrible situation to Twitter. On top of that, there were some episodes where the staff wanted to go all out, like Yuji vs. Choso. In this episode, they spent a lot of time on pre-production like location scouting and 3D modeling, so the time they got for actual production was severely reduced. This is only regarding this episode by the way, as an episode director, Kazuhito Arai, made it public. On the other hand, there were some special cases like Jogo vs. Sukuna, where the staff was given more time than the other episodes. because this was a priority episode. Then Sukuna vs Mahoraga was the complete opposite, as most of the creative ideas had to be discarded because they lacked time to execute them, and the episode could only be palatable because the editors saved it by slapping some background images sliding, still frames and whatnot. Now if you were listening, I think it's pretty easy to point out that planning was the entire problem. Some episodes got a lot of time and some were finished 3 to 4 hours before the release time. And this is because the producers or the big guys sitting at the top don't really care about the end result as long as it is palatable. Not good. Just enough for us, the audience, to not hate on it. You might say, well, JJK Season 2 was way more than just good enough. It was incredible. Yes, this is true, and it is only because of the sheer dedication and passion these worn out animators have towards this project. And also, this is not the quote-unquote finished product. As a freelance animator, Rokia Nobili mentioned on Twitter that only 30% of the intended vision was achieved in episode 17 due to, well, time constraints. This exact thing was also pointed out by Hone, a staff animator. They were given a schedule that would normally be impossible to meet in time, but the people above them saw the end result and were satisfied. They also mentioned how they regret finishing the JJK movie in just 4 months, because this proves that even with a deadly schedule, the staff are capable of making a product that the audience enjoys without complaining. So yeah, this is the entire situation. And to be frank, I don't see this improving anytime soon. As this is not a problem that can be solved in over a year, it has to be a slow process as it's an issue that is deeply connected with the working culture in Japan. We all know how horrible it is. The entire mindset of rich people on the top has to change, and it doesn't seem to be happening. As an interview with the CEO of MAPPA, Manabu Atsuka, was released recently, and oh boy, this person is the worst. He's so disconnected from his staff, and it's so sad to read this article. I mean, just look at this paragraph. The first thing we needed to do was increase productivity, which basically means to get in more staff and make their lives miserable. It's quite difficult to catch up with the quality of Kyoto Animation and Ufotable in a short period of time, and trying to get there over 20 or 30 years is too slow. Like, all he cares about is how to make MAPPA bigger, whatever it takes. I thought about how I could participate in the race with the top studios in the shortest possible time by producing a lot and gaining experience while maintaining high quality. Yeah, he looks at this as a race of these multi-million corporations under which the innocent animators get trampled. The entire interview is obviously more than this, and please go through it yourself as it will show you what kind of mentality these shitty rich guys have. MAPPA usually gets called out for not treating their staff well, but this problem is not limited to them. It's present in the entire industry at various levels. I wanted to end this video on a positive note, but really there isn't much. The only positive that came out of this Jujutsu Kaisen scenario is that now at least more people are informed of this problem and are actively talking about it. That's all for this video. Meet you guys the next time. Goodbye.